I rented a farmhouse on Airbnb for a weekend getaway with my partner. We were looking for a quiet, secluded place to relax and escape the city. When we arrived, the sun was just setting, and the sky was a mix of orange and pink hues. The farmhouse was nestled in the countryside, surrounded by fields of corn and wheat. It was a charming and rustic old building, with wooden shutters and a wraparound porch. We were excited to spend a cozy weekend there. As we settled in, we noticed that the house had a strange atmosphere. It was quiet, almost too quiet, and there was a chill in the air that seemed to permeate through the walls. We chalked it up to the old building's quirks and decided to make the best of it. We cooked a nice dinner in the well-equipped kitchen and sat down to watch a movie on the old-fashioned TV in the living room. As the night wore on, we began to hear strange noises. At first, it was just creaking floorboards and the wind whistling through the cracks, but then we heard something else. It was a faint whisper, as if someone was trying to speak to us from another room. My partner and I exchanged nervous glances, but we didn't say anything. We didn't want to scare each other further. But then the noises grew louder. We heard footsteps on the stairs, and the door to the upstairs bedroom opened and closed on its own. We tried to brush it off, thinking it was just an old house settling, but then things got even weirder. We heard the sound of a child laughing in the hallway, but when we got up to investigate, there was no one there. We even felt a cold breeze brush past us, even though all the windows were closed. We were starting to get spooked, but then things took a turn for the worse. We saw a shadowy figure in the hallway just standing there, watching us. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. The figure was translucent, almost like a mist, but there was a clear human shape to it. My partner and I were frozen in fear, unable to move or speak. The figure didn't move either, but we could feel its presence all around us. Finally, my partner managed to find his voice and yelled out, "Who are you? What do you want?" But there was no response. The figure just faded away, leaving us alone in the dark. We spent the rest of the night huddled together on the couch, too afraid to move. We didn't sleep a wink. The next morning, we packed up our things and left the farmhouse, never looking back. As we drove away from the farmhouse, we couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. We talked about what had happened, trying to make sense of it all. Maybe the farmhouse was built on a burial ground, or maybe it was the site of some tragic event in the past. We didn't know for sure, but one thing was clear. We weren't the only ones in that farmhouse that night. It wasn't until we got home and did some research that we found out the farmhouse had a dark history. It had been owned by a family in the 1800s, and there had been a fire that killed the parents and their 2 children. The farmhouse had been abandoned for years after that, and there were rumors that it was haunted by the ghosts of the family. We were shaken by this revelation. Had we really encountered the ghosts of that family? Was that shadowy figure we saw the ghost of one of the children? We may never know for sure, but one thing was certain. We would never forget our experience at the haunted farmhouse. From that night on, my partner and I were more careful when renting Airbnb properties. We made sure to research the history of the property and read reviews from previous guests. We didn't want to have another encounter like the one we had at the farmhouse. But even now, years later, I can still remember the chill in the air and the feeling of being watched by something unseen. The haunted farmhouse had left a lasting impression on me, and I couldn't help but wonder what other secrets and ghosts were hidden in the world around us. I love to travel and explore new places, so when I found an Airbnb listing for a historic mansion in the heart of New Orleans, I couldn't resist. The mansion was over 150 years old and had been restored to its former glory, complete with ornate details and antique furniture. As soon as I arrived, I knew something was off. The mansion was eerily quiet, despite being located in a bustling neighborhood. The front door creaked open with a loud groan, and the musty smell of old books and furniture filled my nostrils. The hosts had left me a note with instructions for my stay, but something about the handwriting seemed strange, almost sinister. I brushed off my unease and set out to explore the mansion. The first floor was impressive, with a grand staircase leading up to the bedrooms. The walls were adorned with portraits of the previous owners, and I couldn't help but feel like their eyes were following me as I walked past. As I ascended the staircase, I heard a faint whispering sound. At first, I thought it was the wind outside, but as I got closer to the second floor, The sound grew louder and more distinct. It was like someone was talking in hushed tones, but I couldn't make out any words. The second floor was even more unsettling than the first. The air was colder and the lighting was dimmer. The bedrooms were beautifully decorated, but there was something off about the way the furniture was arranged. It was like the room had been staged for a play or a movie, but no one had actually lived there. I found myself drawn to one particular room at the end of the hall. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see a faint light coming from inside. As I approached, the whispering sound grew louder, and I could hear the sound of footsteps on the hardwood floor. I pushed the door open, and what I saw made my blood run cold. The room was empty, but there was a circle of candles on the floor, and the walls were covered in strange symbols and markings. The whispering sound was coming from the center of the circle, where a figure in a hooded cloak was kneeling. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I was frozen in place, watching as the figure began to chant in a language I didn't recognize. The candles flickered and danced, casting strange shadows on the walls. The room grew colder and colder until I could see my breath in the air. Just as suddenly as it had started, the chanting stopped. The figure stood up, turned to face me, and pulled back its hood. It was a woman, with long dark hair and piercing blue eyes. She looked at me for a moment, then disappeared into thin air. I stumbled out of the mansion, my heart racing and my mind reeling. What had I just witnessed? Was it some kind of ritual or spell? I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stumbled upon something dark and dangerous. I tried to leave a negative review on the Airbnb listing, warning others to stay away from the mansion, but when I went to post it, the listing had disappeared. It was like the mansion had never existed at all. To this day, I don't know what I saw in that mansion or who that woman was, but I'll never forget the feeling of fear and dread that overtook me as I watched her perform her eerie ritual. Some things are better left unexplained, and that mansion in New Orleans is definitely one of them. For years, I had dreamed of visiting California and soaking up the beauty of the Pacific coastline. So when I stumbled upon an oceanfront Airbnb nestled in the cliffs of Big Sur, I felt like fate was calling me to book it for my summer vacation. As I drove up the winding road to the cottage, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation and excitement. The photos online had shown a stunning property, with breathtaking views of the ocean and all the amenities I could ask for. However, as soon as I arrived, I felt a sense of unease settle over me like a dark cloud. The air was thick with fog, and the waves crashing against the cliffs sounded more ominous than welcoming. The cottage, which had looked so picturesque in the photos, now seemed weathered and worn, as if it had seen better days. Still, I tried to shake off my apprehension and focus on the positives. The interior of the cottage was just as beautiful as the photos had suggested, with modern furnishings, a cozy fireplace, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. But there was something unsettling about the way the furniture was arranged, almost as if someone had hastily thrown it together to create a false sense of comfort. As the night settled in, my discomfort grew more intense. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, even though I was alone in the cottage. Every time I turned my head, I thought I caught glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye, but when I looked directly at it, there was nothing there. Then, I heard a strange noise coming from outside. It sounded like footsteps, but they were too slow and deliberate to be human. It was almost as if something was dragging its feet along the ground, inching closer to the cottage with each passing moment. I mustered up my courage and made my way to the front door, trying to see who or what was outside. Through the peephole, I saw a figure standing on the edge of the cliff, looking out towards the ocean. The figure was tall and slender, with long hair that flowed in the wind. It was too dark to make out any details, but I could feel its eyes boring into my soul. I quickly retreated to my bedroom, but the fear wouldn't leave me. I felt like I was being suffocated by the atmosphere of the cottage. I couldn't explain it, but I knew deep down that something was very wrong. The next morning, I woke up to find muddy footprints leading from the front door to my bed. The door was open, and I knew without a doubt that someone or something had been in the cottage with me during the night. After I left the Airbnb, I researched the area and found out that there had been a tragic accident nearby, where someone had fallen from the cliffs and died. Some people believed that the ghost of the victim still lingered in the area, haunting those who dared to stay in the nearby Airbnb. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to hit the like button, share, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Additionally, we invite you to join our Discord community and share in the fun with us. If you have any true crime, horror, or paranormal stories that you think would be perfect for our future videos, we'd be thrilled to hear from you. Simply check out the description for all the necessary information and send us an email with your story. I can't wait to connect with you.